Good evening, everyone. Sorry about that music. I know it is. It's not enjoyable for some, and I get a lot of stick from the CFT guys with regards to that as well. So hope everyone's well. Thanks for joining us on tonight's space. We are here to obviously discuss the season ticket updates. I'll be joined by I am joined by two of our guys, which is Christina and Billy. How are you both?
Yeah, I was good until that music, but all good.
I know. I get a lot of stick for that. I get a lot of
I,
stick.
I like the music, man. You know that I like the music. When I hosted one of these, I missed the music. That's my favorite bit of these whole things.
It's one of those, isn't it? I don't know. I'll have to find out. I might have to contact Space if they can get a better tune going for us because, I'm not
Drum and
sure about
bass.
that one. But I don't mind it. It's everyone else, so I'm fine with it. But you guys okay? Thanks for joining.
Yeah, I'm good. I've just been down for dinner in a cafe in Hadley Woods just to see if I can see any Spurs managers, but no one there today. So
No.
nothing.
What about you, Chris? How have you been? Okay.
Yeah, all good, all good.
Good.
Just
Good. We're excited about this one, haven't we? Aren't we? Because
Yes,
we've got
we
two
very
special
much are.
guests, haven't we?
yeah, this should be a really interesting one actually.
Yeah.
Guys, just before
Yes.
I just want to mention because I've had a hell of a lot of people on Instagram asking me for about information on the scarves and the stickers. Just to let everyone know that I have now put all the links on there. So for
Yeah.
anyone that wants to purchase them, they are all on the Instagram page. If you just click on the links and they're all on there.
Perfect. Okay. So reiterate, it's about the scarves, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the stickers as well. There's stickers as well that we've got going.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, thanks for that. And Billy, anything to add before we introduce our special guests?
No, just thank you to Roots who made the video that was promoting this space and just summarizing a brilliant article that our guests wrote tonight. So it was really good. Check it out if you've not seen it. It's a good summary. And thank you very much. I'm not going to say their name because we're about to introduce them, but to our guests who wrote a fantastic article because it's a really big topic, and I'm glad we're delving into it tonight because I've learned a lot from just speaking to the guys about it. We've taken our time with this one because we didn't want to come straight out and react to it straight away. We wanted to get into the weeds of it first. Yeah, so thank you for being patient because I know came out last week, didn't it? But we tried to take our time with it. And just keep an eye on the socials about the April the 6th protest. Get buying the flags, get buying the scarves. Let's make it really visual. And I'm looking forward to sitting back and listening to this one because I think I'm going to learn a lot.
Yeah. Excellent point, mate. So, and obviously, just to go back to Roots as well, he's obviously he's one of our members behind the scenes. He's probably not as kind of vocal, I suppose, as some of us are, but he does a lot of work behind the scenes, doesn't he? And again, he's come up with a great video to promote and to push what we're doing today. Bill, you there?
Oh, sorry, say that again, mate. Sorry.
That's okay.
No, my mind is on mute.
No, that's right. No, I was just saying about Roots. He does a lot behind the scenes. Obviously.
Yeah, he really does. And he was actually, myself, Kat and Martin met him. We met together a couple of weeks ago to discuss some things. He works really, really hard behind the scenes. If you never met him, if you look at the linesman in the second half of Tottenham games, he's always the one that's shouting at him. So that's how you'll see him.
The one that's usually giving him a bit of abuse. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. He sits right near me and by the corner flag. He's always abusing the linesman. That's how you can find him.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for that, you two. So, again, we're all excited about this and to have a listening to our two special guests who were former Trust co-chairs from 2015 and 2022, and both are still involved heavily in fan representation at national level via the FSA. So, I'd like to welcome Kat and Martin. Are you both there?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
No, thanks for coming on. It's a real pleasure to have you on, and I really appreciate you taking out the time to speak to us, and obviously as us fans as well, because you've got a wealth of knowledge, the pair of you, and it is really, really appreciated. So
we could let everyone down now. It's too massive a build-up. That's it. Everyone's going to go back disappointed now. So.
Like a lead balloon now, isn't it? Let you go, of course, we're talking about now. No, honestly, it's really appreciated because, like I say, it is a Wednesday night. A lot of people spend time with their families and so forth. So to take time out to discuss Spurs with the fans and with us as well, and take time, it is really appreciated. So we do appreciate it.
You're really welcome.
Thank you so much. So obviously, what we wanted to do was discuss a few things. So I'll ask some questions, and then I'll let you guys go with it, and we will ask the fans to come on after you've done pieces, done your piece, whether it's they want to ask questions or put some points across. We always think that's quite quite important for the discussion. So why don't we obviously get straight into it and look at the season ticket price freeze? I mean, a lot of people have looked at this as like a win, I suppose, for the fans. But what's your thoughts? Is it really a win for the fans?
I think there is a win there. I think, let's kind of be honest about it. Everything that we were hearing, I think everything that people were expecting was that season ticket prices were going to go up, and they didn't go up. And we're into opinion here. I think the reason they didn't go up, I think there was a few reasons. There's been a national campaign going on right across the Premier League. Fan groups from clubs right across the Premier League have been campaigning around a slogan called "Stop Exploiting Loyalty," which the Football Supporters Association has been helping to coordinate. And there's been action at games across the country. There's been different fans groups from different clubs standing together. We demonstrated alongside West Ham, for example, and you wouldn't have got that a few years ago as well. So there's that kind of national movement which was kind of putting pressure on clubs not to put the prices up, and arguing that prices have gone up so much over the past 20, 30 years since the Premier League was formed. And there's a lot of other income now. The TV deals are so big as well. I also think that some of that pressure paid off at some of the other clubs. So about a week or a fortnight before the Spurs announcement, West Ham, for example, announced that they were freezing season ticket prices down as well. So I think that made it difficult for the club to go ahead with what I think that they wanted to do. So I think that you kind of have to take that fans actually speaking up and acting together and making a fuss and making this a campaign that's got some coverage in the national media has secured a bit of a win, in as much as they couldn't do everything that they wanted to do. It created the conditions where it would have been difficult to put that price up. And there's been freezes elsewhere. Liverpool, West Ham, Brentford announced. I think they were the first club to announce that they were freezing season ticket prices as well. So I think also, people are going to be going, what about the quality of the football that we're doing, we're watching? That wouldn't have exactly made it easy for them to put the prices up everywhere as well. So I think that you kind of got to take the win where you can. And I think every fan, in whatever way, who stood up and argued, against price rises, made their voice heard. I think that every fan has got to take a bit of credit there as well, and we need to recognise that, that we can achieve something. I think that we shouldn't forget that ticket prices are already really high at Spurs anyway. We think they've been too high ever since we moved to the new stadium. I think you need to remember that no club needs to charge that much, because gate receipts are such a small part of the mix these days. I mean, when the last TV deal was signed a few years back, the FSA did some research which found out that in that season, if clubs had charged nothing for every ticket at every game, they would have still got more money coming in than the season before because of the size of the TV deal. So that's kind of a bit of a kind of comparison. So they've not done us a favour here. And I think we'll come on to talk about this. When we scratch beneath the headline freeze, and it is a freeze in the headline season ticket price for some fans, we find that the freeze actually isn't a freeze for many sections of the fan base as well. So they've increased things by stealth through various other measures, which are going to kick in the coming season. So, the devil's in the detail. I think that video and it's great to see stuff like that, because that really has an impact, and it's easier to digest than listening to somebody like me droning on or reading long articles as well. But the devil's in the details. So, we're kind of grateful to get a chance to try and go into that, and fans should be able to get to grips with that.
Yes, again, really interesting response to that, Martin. Kat, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think Martin has gone into great depth on that one, so there's probably not that much to add. Also, I should apologise in advance because I keep dropping in and out. So sorry if I do drop. I think Martin is correct in that the national mood created the conditions by which it was possible to push for a price freeze. I think he's also correct that, knowing the club board as we do, it would be their natural instinct to want to increase that. And I actually think Martin might be able to correct me if my memory doesn't serve me right on this one. But we were told during our time co-chairing the Supporters Trust at Tottenham that every vertical had to show an increase season upon season. That was right, wasn't it, Martin?
Yeah, that was something they came up with at a meeting, and it's kind of been discussed and questioned a little bit. But again, we'll kind of go on to sort of what gets reported. But they seem to have had this thing, which is never confirmed officially, that every vertical in every part of the business had to go up every year to keep the banks happy. Now, anybody who knows anything about business will go, that really doesn't sound right, because all the bank's interested in is, am I going to get my money back? They don't care how you get that money. They're just interested in, are you going to get the money back? So if there has been some kind of deal signed where every single income stream has to show an increase every year, then I think that's something we'd need to hear about, and we might want it to be consulted about in the first place. But it's certainly a line that they've used. But a lot of things get said in those meetings, which then kind of turn out to be not quite how they were framed. Let's put it that way. But it's an interesting one to raise.
Yeah, and also, of course, that could just be a convenient line to therefore justify increasing season tickets every year. So I think all of us on this call would probably have expected them to try and put the pricing up. But as we said, the national conditions, the circumstances at Tottenham, and obviously over 1,000 people marching down the High Road, and the fact that we're languishing in the Premier League makes it really difficult for them to do that. So we're going to take the win on a freeze for a section of our fans, and then we'll come on to what that actually means in reality for everyone else.
Absolutely.
Further on in this phase.
I think that's perfectly put. To be fair. Again, we look at the other things that the club have done. So obviously it goes into the next question, which is the automatic cup scheme. I mean, obviously I'll ask you, Kat, 'cause obviously Martin, that's a great point on the first one, about seeing if the season ticket price was a win for the fans. But obviously the automatic cup scheme, I mean, why has this been taken away from the fans? And does this benefit the club by doing, and how does it benefit the club by doing so? There seems to have been no warning or explanation for the club with regards to why this has been done. I mean, have you got any information on that, or any reasons as to why the club would have done this?
Well, I think the key point here is a lack of clarification or rationale from the club. This is going to become a recurring theme. It's my understanding that it also wasn't discussed with either the Fan Advisory Board, the FAB, or the Supporters Trust in advance. That's my understanding, and it appears to have been a decision taken in isolation by the club. So we really do need them to be more transparent, to be more accountable, to explain reasons for their decisions to the fans far more clearly than they are doing at the moment. I don't think anyone can disagree with that. The reason that they have given for removing the automatic cup scheme, and this is flimsy in my opinion, was that it's only used by a small number of season ticket holders, and B, that it slowed down the on-sale process. So it inserted an extra window into that ticket sale process for our cup games. Now, I've been on the automatic cup scheme for all the time I've had a season ticket. So that's pushing 30 years. And I joined that scheme for a number of reasons. The additional 10 ticketing points that you got on renewal, obviously. So you get 30 for silver. You had 40 for what was called gold, which has been on the automatic cup scheme, and 50 for platinum, which is a home and away season ticket. I was also on that scheme for the convenience of not having to log in and purchase cup tickets at a time that was quite likely to be inconvenient to me when I was working full time. And it also meant I saved on booking fees, which are either 150 or 175. It's been so long since I paid a booking fee on a cup ticket because I've been on the gold. I think it might be £1.75. I know that a lot of season ticket holders who are my age are definitely on the scheme. A load of my mates are on the scheme. A load of the people that I've spoken to since they've taken this away have been on the scheme. So how many do they class as a small number? They haven't been transparent as to how many people were actually on this scheme. And, it was a great deal.
Oh, has Kat gone?
She dropped out, I think.
Yes. Oh, Martin, bless her, unless Kat comes back, do you want to carry on from what Kat was saying? I mean, just to obviously reiterate what Kat was saying there about friends and season ticket holders. I've got friends that won the automatic cup scheme, and they've been asking questions like, why have the club done this?
Yeah.
Because for the exact reasons that Kat's been saying is, with regards to just knowing it was automatically done, people work full time. It's there's a lot more hassle to try and get these tickets.
Well, there's a convenience thing, isn't there? And there's also it's odd that this must be one of the few times where this board has turned down guaranteed money up front. Because if you signed up to that, you were saying, I am going to pay for every home cup game that comes up. And it's pretty likely that if you're a season ticket holder and you've got a ticket for your 19 league games, and let's not forget that not too many years ago we used to get cup games included in the season ticket price as well, first 3 or 4 a season. But you're going to want to go and see those games as well, aren't you? So it just seems to be easier all round. The argument that it slowed down
I'm back, by the way.
You're back.
Oh,
we just got onto the slowing down the on-sale process.
Awful, sorry. Do you want me to carry on waffling?
Yes, please. No, Kat, it was what you were saying was, I think a lot of fans can resonate with what you're saying and really understand when it comes to the automatic cup scheme, because I've got friends that were exactly the same. They love that scheme.
Yeah.
Just for convenience.
Totally.
I think me and Martin were talking about there.
Yeah.
To take it away, I don't think it makes much sense. And there must be something to it for a reason for them to scrap it.
I mean, if we look at the small number issue, I'm going to question and challenge them on saying there are only small numbers. I don't think that can be true. Just on my straw poll, a lot of people I know were on that scheme. And then the argument that it slowed down the on-sale process also seems really flimsy. So let's look at Frankfurt, for example. They took my money yesterday as a gold season ticket holder. They are already on sale to other season ticket holders today. That's hardly a slowing down of a window. So with you, I can only see negatives in removing the scheme. I can't see any positives for the fans, and I can't see any for the club either, apart from maybe laziness and wanting to remove that one sale window. Now, the only other thing I can think of is that there has been some talk about this helping to enable atmosphere groups and those blocks, but the last time I looked, all of the atmosphere groups had publicly withdrawn from working with the club after they'd paid lip service to it for a number of years, and they cited a lack of commitment on the club's part. So that's also potentially quite flimsy. So here is a great example where the club's communications are awful, where they didn't consult with the official fan groups, and we're left in a worse position than we were a couple of weeks ago. So that's my take on the Auto Cup scheme.
But look, and that last bit is important because that's a fact, right? So they've said it's a headline price freeze in your season ticket, right? So if you are a season ticket holder who's under 66 years old and you're only going to go to 19 league games next season, it's a price freeze. If you're a season ticket holder who's under 66 years old and you're going to go to any cup games at home at all, because you've got the booking fee, you're going to be paying more than you did last year. So that's a price increase. So, I've seen some spin from this club in its time, but presenting an increase as a freeze is a new one. So they need to have a look at that again, and they need to explain it a little bit better. Maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe I'm just not very bright, but that's certainly what it looks like.
And can I just pick you up on something you both just said as well? And if you're not allowed to talk about it, please move on. But you both mentioned that the club did this without consulting the FAB and the trust, and obviously you guys have had extensive experience in that kind of being involved in those circles. Is that something that much happen often? And like, do they often just do things without consulting the people that they're supposed to be consulting?
The most famous.
Are you allowed to share any experiences on that? Without,
the most famous example of that was that if you remember in the run up to us moving into the new stadium, there'd been a lot of talk about how we were going to build this white wall of noise modelled on Dortmund's stand. The biggest single-tier stand in England. It's going to be a great kind of cop end for Spurs fans, and everybody was really behind that. And then at the last minute, without any consultation, they told us they were introducing a thing called the 1882 Club, which was a kind of premium light thing, which would be kind of box holders right across the middle of the stand. Now, obviously, we'd have objected to that and have wanted a discussion on that. But to make all that fuss about building a single-tier stand and then put a double row of executive light boxes across the middle of it, wasn't really a great idea. And I think people have seen that. So no, it isn't the first time that they've sprung something at the last minute.
That's interesting. I mean, Billy, Christine, have you got anything else that you want to ask Martin or Kat before we move on? But again, some really interesting points with regards to obviously the cup scheme and the club.
Yeah, and I know we will stick to the ticketing for now, but it'll be it's just interesting to hear their experience of those kind of circles because as the video that and the articles that we shared earlier say, it does feel like it's just merely a box ticking exercise at Spurs, and not really, the process of it isn't really trying to get advice from people that actually care about the club, which is what those things are designed for. But that's my impression of it anyway. But anyway, we'll stick to ticketing for now.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, again, it seems like a bit of a strange decision, personally for me anyway, and I think many others feel the same. Like I say, Kat, you're probably correct when they're saying that it's minimal fans. I mean, I've had quite a few message me with regards to it and saying about the cup scheme that they were signed up to it. So if I'm getting those kind of messages, God knows how many other fans have been part of that cup scheme and probably don't understand why it's been taken away. We've, like zero explanation really. So transparency again is pretty poor from the club. Oh, is Kat there?
Yeah.
She's not there. Okay, Martin, you're there. Sorry, Martin, I'll ask you that. Obviously, with regards to just following on from that, again, we talk about transparency from the club, and it just seems to be, I suppose, an all-time low, really. Scott, I mean, you've got more, I say, knowledge and understanding of the way the club are run and how they are with regards to responding to fans' queries. It doesn't seem to get any better, I suppose.
There's a lot of, I think Kat's back, by the way. There's a lot of spin I think that comes out, and I think that we'll probably go on to talk a little bit about this later, because I know it's conversations that we've had with a few of the people I know that are on this call, and you know, you guys over the years as well. But there's obviously going to be every single detail of a discussion that you have if you go and meet the club. You're not necessarily going to be able to report that. And I think that's the same. Anybody that goes into meetings, you know, if you're a union rep and you go into a meeting with an employer, you go into some staff meeting, go whatever. There's some things that people need to know are not going to be publicly reported, because otherwise they don't feel comfortable discussing them or whatever. That's it. But it's just getting the balance right. And I think it's you know, we used to have a bit of a saying when we went into meetings, they say, good morning, check your watch. But it's having to kind of like take everything that the club says and look at it and go, is there another possible interpretation of when they've said this? It could mean something different, or what's the missing bit, or what isn't there? And I think that kind of goes on when you're having the sort of face-to-face conversations sometimes as well. I think that the club has that they had a need to control every aspect of communication, and I think that attempt to control it doesn't give people confidence that what they're hearing is necessarily accurate or true. And I think maybe if they gave people a little bit more space, there might be a little bit more trust that's built as well. So, but it's just, you know, we'll keep coming back to this in this discussion, and Kat's mentioned it quite a few times as well, that it's this kind of lack of clarity that's, you know, it annoys people as much as confuses people, really, as well. So,
yeah, it raises more questions than answers, I suppose.
It does, and also, I mean, I think it was on on your Twitter feed, but there's a guy, Phil, that you know, we know from going to games, like you said, that he'd written in on behalf of his 82-year-old dad about the you know, what the actual price of his dad's ticket would be, and they came back and said to him, there hasn't been a rise in the price of your season ticket, but there has been a reduction in the discount that you get. And it's like, well, it's again this kind of disingenuous answer, isn't it?
That's
because
like semantic,
that's a rise, isn't it? It's, well, exactly, it's right, isn't it? And I mean, we'll talk about the seniors in a minute. And I said, I think Kat's back on now, so she's probably better placed to detail of that than me.
Kat's back, excellent.
I am back.
Well, I think, excellent. Well, I mean, that's a good point, because obviously that'll move on to the next. The next question we have is with regards to this, obviously, you know, the senior fans. So, and obviously we've got Save Our Seniors, who have obviously put out there, obviously they're unhappy about the situation with regards to what the club's done, and as have everyone else, and they put protests out there. But obviously the club have announced that they will have season tickets available again for the seniors. But there's very little information with regards to it. So where would it be sort of restricted to certain areas? What will cost be? I think there's some key questions that need answers, and I think again a lack of transparency and a lack of explanation or information with regards.
Yeah,
to
I don't disagree, and I'll try and do this without being cut off. I'm so sorry about this.
Yes, that'd be great. No, don't be silly. It's
not
fine.
helpful.
It's just a club that's trying to silence you, Kat. That's what it is.
Absolutely, it's a conspiracy. I'm here for that. Martin and I have been part of Save Our Seniors and part of the steering group for the past year now. So that's when the club first announced that it was going to withdraw all of the new senior season tickets, and its intention to reduce the discount from 50% to 25% over the next 5 seasons for those that are currently holding senior season tickets. And I think, as you've said, as we've all said, it's another headline that we really should dig beneath to fathom out what this actually means. So they've announced that they will continue offering senior season tickets, but with no other detail. So back in the days of White Hart Lane, let's just go back on a memory little walk here. Back in the days of White Hart Lane, all concessions, including senior, were only available in one stand, the North Stand, Paxton Road. So the club has always restricted those areas. It's always restricted the areas where concessions are available. And in fairness, So do most clubs throughout the division. So they're not alone in that. During our time co-chairing the trust, we lobbied hard for a better choice, a wider choice of concessionary seating in the new stadium. And we were initially quite pleased by their decision to offer concessions in all blocks under a certain price point. Now, I can't remember exactly what it was, and the prices have gone up, but it was around about £11.50 at that time, which took in most of the south and most of the north. Admittedly, it ruled out a lot of the east and west, but we're still in a situation where we've got 2 large stands now where we can all access concessions as opposed to 1 small stand in White Hart Lane. So that felt like we were moving in the right direction. Like many other people, I chose my season ticket seat in the south on the basis that I wouldn't have to move from Friends when I reach retirement age. I mean, obviously that's ages away, but still, I was future proofing, and I know a lot of other people did that too, because the club had promised, it had said that concessions would be available in those blocks, and we all listened to that. We believed it. We purchased our new season ticket seats accordingly, and for the first couple of seasons in the new stadium, all seemed to be well. But then we started hearing from seniors, this is via the trust at this time, who had been refused concessionary season tickets in those eligible blocks because of an issue. And they said something like, maintain a match day and season ticket ratio. It was some utter jargon. And we spent the next season pushing the club to explain what was going on until it became fairly obvious that they'd imposed a cap on the number of concessionary seats that were available in each of those eligible blocks. Now, they refused to share any numbers, and they actually never admitted that there was a cap either, but it was fairly clear. So that was already a major issue. And then in March of last year, they announced that they wouldn't be offering any new senior season tickets at all. So after a full year of campaigning with the Save Our Seniors, we're really pleased that the club has at least conceded on that. However, they've not confirmed how many will be available in which blocks. And so the reality is that many of our fans who will be turning 66 as it is now still won't qualify for a discount. The club still links the concession to the seat and not the person. So that means that many will have to relocate away from their family and friendship groups if they want to qualify for any of those rare discounts. And the club also mentioned in its announcement a mechanism whereby those who had held season tickets for the longest would qualify for any available senior concessions. But we can probably remember that when we were moving from White Hart Lane via Wembley back into the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and they did phasing of ticket selection, one of the main criteria they looked at was longevity of holding a season ticket. And the records only went back 11 years. So, I mean, admittedly, we're 5 years on, so they might have like 15, 16 years of data. But when you're talking about somebody reaching 66, the likelihood is they've had a season ticket for 40 years, 50 years. So, I mean, that hardly seems like a reliable mechanic. Now, on top of this, we've also learned that the club is pushing ahead with its plans to taper that discount from 50% down to 25% over the next 5 seasons. So the existing senior season ticket holders who already hold a senior season ticket, senior concession season ticket, they have in fact had a 10% price rise in real terms for this coming season. So the overall price has dropped by 5%, but because they paid 50% of that, their increase is actually a 10% rise. So although the club presents it as a reduction in discount, but still a price freeze, that is a load of bollocks. So our older members are actually paying 10% more if they're fortunate enough to have already qualified for a senior concession season ticket. So I'll shut up. Martin, you've probably got more on this.
Yeah, please carry on. I mean, I think most fans are again interested, as am I, and intrigued by the way the club are actually treating loyalty. Yeah. You know, that's how you're being treated. You know, I mean, I'm 38. If I'm a Spurs fan for another 30 years, I mean, going to games and so forth, and I'm looking at this situation. You're kind of looking and thinking, why bother?
Yeah. Well, I think there's an annoyance as well that, and I mean, the club would respond to this and say, well, that means you just complain whatever we did. But if you're going to go ahead and do something, own it, front it up. Absolutely. You know, you could argue that Manchester United, I mean, what Manchester United are doing is hugely unpopular with old offshore Jim up there, the new saviour supposedly after the Glazers kind of stepped back a little bit. after all those years of campaigning. But at least they've been upfront with what they're doing and the reasons that they're doing it. Now, they're terrible reasons, and they don't necessarily stack up, but they've owned what they've tried to do. And I think what the club's position on this is it's the definition of presenting nothing as something, isn't it? With this, and you kind of look elsewhere. I mean, I'll apologise here because this is a case of it's not a shame about the Arsenal. At Arsenal, there was a pushback by their fan groups against the plans to reduce concessions and reduce the rate of senior concessions. Not only did Arsenal roll back on that and reversed on their proposals, they actually sat down and talked to their fan groups, and they came back with an improved offering. So they did a bit of a trade-off, and there's actually a greater availability of concessions at Arsenal next year than there was this year after they've had the discussions. The similar things happened at West Ham, although they're still trying to work the details out there as well. So it's not as if we're asking for something that can't happen. It's impossible. It's economically impossible. It's happening elsewhere. So I'd say that there's some specific questions that we need the club to clarify. And if people want to ask the club themselves these questions, then go ahead. I think we need to know how many season ticket holders above the age of 66 does the club currently have? I think we know how many of those qualify for a concession at the moment. We then need to know how many current season ticket holders will turn 66 in the coming seasons, so that some projections can be done. And they've got that information. They've got your date of birth on the database. Yeah. We need to know how many senior concession receipts are available and in which blocks. And we also need to know how that priority allocation process that Kat was talking about is going to work in practice, given that they've only got at the most 15, 16 years worth of available data as well. So certainly we've kind of talked among ourselves with the people that have sort of been involved with the Save Our Seniors campaign. We're going to continue to push for answers to those questions and work with whoever wants to work with us in trying to get those answers. We still want to push for a situation where the concession is linked to the person and not the seat. That seems the fairest way of doing things.
I was going to mention that, Martin, actually, again, with regards to, because I wasn't actually aware of that, but when you mentioned the seat situation, it's actually, so you could actually be moved away from your family because the seat, that's
happened. And we
outrageous.
used to have to deal, we did a lot of casework, and I know the Trust still does a huge amount of casework, and it's a workload that goes largely unnoticed, but we'd have people writing in saying, I've sat with my family for the last 20, 30, whatever years at games. That's the one thing that we do as a family, that it brings us all together. I've just found out that if I want to get the discount on my season ticket as a senior that I always thought I was entitled to, I've got to move away to another part of the stand. And we know people have done that. They have been moved away from the family group, or they've stopped going. And there's that kind of community side of things, which is really important, which I don't think is recognised when you're just, seeming just to look at the balance sheet side of things. So we're not talking about a hypothetical situation. And for most people, they're like, exactly as you said, that most people think, okay, senior concession, that means when I'm old enough, I'll get a concession. That seems to be pretty fair. And if we're going to be blunt about it, people don't live forever. So you're going to get, if you want to call it natural wastage, which is a really horrible, impersonal way of saying that, but it's not as if those people that qualify are always going to be there and somehow block off seats for other people. You're going to get that kind of churn, aren't you, in the demographic of the stadium as well. I think the club's got some options here as well, because again, one of the things we had to deal with was, and maybe come to this a little bit later as well, people said, well, what's so special about the seniors? And actually, generally, we've got an issue in society in this country where older people tend to be better off than younger people. And he said, well, if the idea of a concession is being attacked, then I'm not sure they're necessarily going to stop at the senior ones. But if you are a senior citizen and you think, actually, what, I'm pretty comfortable here. I don't really want to take up my concessionary rate. The club could give people an example to opt in. So, you don't have to take it, or you actually have to make the effort to say, yeah, I will apply for my over 66, over 65 rate. And if I feel as if I'm well off enough not to justify that, then I won't apply for it. So, there's loads of options that you could sit down and discuss properly. Maybe look at a situation where a lower discount for all seniors might be, collectively more palatable than a higher discount for a few. So, does it have to be 50%, or could you go down to 35%, for example, like that? What would people be prepared to do? And it would be interesting to hear hear people's thoughts on that as well. But the current offer, it's not fit for purpose in so many ways, as we've talked about here, really.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, we could actually probably talk about that situation all night, to be honest, because it seems, again, that the loyalty is just being pushed to the limit, doesn't it? And, the club are just turning a blind eye, I suppose, to the loyalty of fans, and that's completely wrong. And again, that's why we're in this situation where we're asking these questions. I mean, the club can turn around and say, oh, you're not going to be happy with this and that. But again, a bit of transparency and a bit of a bit of an understanding of what they're trying to do. But it's kind of like you're just left in the dark, and then you've got to do all this digging to find out actually where fans lie with regards to the situation.
Yeah, totally.
And it's the feeling that they don't care as well, isn't it? That you raise these things and it's like, well, so what? And I mean, to be honest, there are fans will say the same thing as well. That so what you're moaning about or whatever. But I don't know any other business where there used to be this thing, didn't it, that we're fans, not customers. But it's like, well, if we were customers, we might be treated a bloody sight better than we are now. I don't know any other business that treats its customer base in the way that football clubs do. And that's not particularly, Spurs aren't alone in that, but they're one of the worst offenders. Yeah. Certainly on things like this. So.
Yeah, no, again, as I can imagine, everybody listening, we obviously appreciate that. But again, it's a lot to take in, I suppose. And if a lot of fans aren't aware with regards to the senior fan situation, I mean, they certainly are now. And I think again, it raises more questions as to what the club are actually doing.
It does. And I will say that if you do want the Save Our Seniors people, so Martin, myself, and the rest of our steering group to come on and do a space with you, we'll do that and we can talk about it for that whole hour.
Absolutely.
No problem.
Well,
yeah, definitely.
Again, I think
we'll definitely
there's a lot more to delve in with regards to that, and find out a lot more information on that as well. So again, obviously, time's running away with us. So the next point, next question, and next thing we want to talk about was the ticket exchange. Now, again, I think this is one of the most. Again, I'm talking about WhatsApps, and I've got messages from friends and so forth with regards to 1/19 of the price of a game if you want to put it on the ticket exchange, but the club can sell it for the full price. How is this fair? And a lot of my friends and people have been saying, is this again a way for the club to gain more money? Is it just, or is this an assumption with regards to that? Or, I mean, I look at it and think it's a bit, because some will say you're paying for your season ticket, it's going to cost that amount, so you're going to get back what you pay for the tickets. But that's not always been the case. Again, this season you'd sell it for what actually it's worth, category A, B, C, for example. That seems to be taken away again from the fans, but the club will potentially benefit from this.
Yeah, I'll be honest with this, and I might not make myself popular here.
No.
That I think that with all of the other changes, I think this is the one that I'm annoyed about or bothered about less, right? And okay. I'll try and explain why. Okay.
Yeah, please do.
I know that the club's got this view as well, and I actually agree on this. That I don't think a season ticket is supposed to be a commodity or a way of buying and selling and making a profit, right? So I think, as you just said, as long as I'm recouping my loss, as long as I'm recouping what I spend, if I can't get to a game, then I'm not really that bothered about the amount the club sells a ticket on for. And I do, clubs have to make money like any business, and football clubs, unfortunately, are businesses now, and that's it. So it's kind of, if I'm not losing out and it's making some money, I'm not particularly bothered about that, because I don't see my season ticket as a profit-making investment. It's a way to go and see the football club that I support as well. So, and also you need to remember that the cost of kind of match day categorized tickets individually doesn't add up anymore to the cost of your season ticket anyway. So there's two different mechanisms that are at play here. So in terms of what's likely to be raised, we've calculated that there seems to be roughly 7,000 tickets every game that are sold through exchange, right? So that's going to make about this is back of a fag packet stuff, sort of raises between about 900,000 to 1.1 million per season for the club, which, 1.1 million, I wouldn't mind if you want to put that in my bank account, but for a football club, it's not really very much at all, is it, as well? So I can see why the optics are bad. It's been poorly received in some quarters, because it does look like another way of seemingly recouping a loss from, not raising the headline season ticket price by kind of putting everything else up. But in the general scheme of things, I'm not as bothered about it. I think that one thing that it will do, because there is the perception that the club is somehow being sneaky or kind of sneaking something out of us that we could have been getting, it's kind of de-incentivizing people to use the exchange scheme, isn't it? And you're going to get more kind of, here's a screenshot of my ticket, just do that and we'll sort it out between ourselves. So now the club's made this big thing about needing to know who's in the stadium or whatever. They're making a bit of a rod for their own back here, aren't they? But that's their decision. But, that's a personal view. I don't think that particular change is the worst thing that they've done. And I can understand some of the reasoning behind it. And I don't think that fans lose out. You can argue that you lose out if you think, well, I should be getting what the club sells a ticket on for. But if you're getting your money back, then you're not losing out. That would be my view. I don't know if you think that, Kat.
Again, I agree to that with that to an extent, and I think that it's a very valid and fair point you make. I think the one question I would have to that is, so say you sell a ticket for £60, should the club just not sell it for £60 and not £90 to somebody else that's going to have to pay £90 for a ticket you pay £60 for? Does that make sense? So it's not actually you as a fan that's losing out, but again, you're selling it on to somebody else.
But I think I'll jump in here if that's okay. I think as Martin said earlier, though, we're comparing apples and pears. Like your match day ticket pricing is not the same as your season ticket pricing. So a One Hotspur member who was bought at primary source from the club in that initial sales window would have paid the category price. So why should a One Hotspur member who's on the exchange and getting it at a secondary source get it at 60 quid when you've already charged somebody 90? I think if you're selling to a membership on a match day categorized basis, you need to be consistent in that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, and that's like I say, that's a great point. And thanks for jumping in, Kat, because obviously that answers
that's all right.
as well.
But also, if you get 1/19 for your ticket and you can't go to a Category C game, you're going to end up getting a bit more for your ticket than that headline price as well. So that again, they haven't announced how many games will be A, B, and C. Maybe every game will be a Category A next season because we're so good.
Yeah, that would be another talking point if that happens, I suppose.
Don't rule anything out until it's absolutely confirmed. That's my advice.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Billy, Christina, have you got anything to add to that?
I don't know if this is just a silly question in general, but with everything, all these decisions that's been happened right now, do you guys feel that this is a Tottenham decision or a Premier League decision?
Oh, it's Tottenham. It's the club.
100% is Tottenham. The Premier League, the Premier League wouldn't have the authority to impose anything around home ticketing. Like the away price cap was something different and very specific. But the Premier League as an entity are very clear that they won't impose any restrictions on home pricing. So they absolutely, there are things in the Premier League rule book that each club has to adhere to. So, for example, they have to offer junior concessions, let's say, for example. They have to put a proportion of away visiting supporters pitch side. So there are various rules in the Premier League handbook that each club needs to adhere to. But the Premier League would not get involved to that level where they'd tell Tottenham to change the way that they operate their ticket exchange or to remove a Gold Cup scheme. These are local decisions made by the board of Tottenham Hotspur.
And that's down to the clubs will argue that, and a lot of people agree with this, we're a private business and it's nobody else's business how we decide to run our business. And people forget this about the Premier League. The Premier League, people kind of think it's like the FA used to be, like it's like a governing body, and it isn't. The Premier League is 20 chairs of the Premier League clubs that season. Right, that's where the votes are. So we kind of, Kat still does a lot more of this with work through the FSA, but we've kind of been into meetings with the Premier League over the year, and there's some really good people that work there, really good football people who get it. Occasionally we've been in meetings and like the Spurs board have come up and you can see some of the eyebrows on the other side of the table get raised because I think they know that they're quite difficult people to deal with as well. But so, the Premier League could have a view on whether something is a good idea or not a good idea, or, they might well think, I suspect that a lot of people at the Premier League think we need to be a little bit careful here about, rising ticket prices in a way that we're perceived as a business because it's not particularly good for the public image. But in the end, it doesn't really matter what they think as a Premier League. What matters is how are the 20 chairs of the clubs when they go and sit down in a board meeting going to vote?
Yeah.
And most of
just
those clubs are not going to vote for anybody else to interfere in the way they run their business.
No, and just to clarify, you need 14 out of the 20 votes to move anything.
Yeah.
A Premier League a shareholders meeting. Perhaps a separate episode here, because I'm aware of time, and I know we want to get some questions in, and we're not done with our questions yet. Yep. But I mean, Martin's involved in a steering group at the Football Supporters Association around the whole ticketing issue, and our moves to try and ask the Premier League to review the ticketing section of their handbook. A lot of it is 30 years old. So it could do with updating. And by that point, if you can get something into their rule book, then you can try and put some real guardrails in there. And that could play into our hands. That could be of benefit for fans. But at the moment, all these decisions are solely on the heads of the people who run Tottenham Hotspur Football Club.
Excellent. Thank you for that, guys.
And can I just ask a super quick question as well?
Just see if you wanted to jump in as well.
Yeah, man. And just from obviously you guys, you're in your day jobs and in your part-time, you get to hear a lot of stuff around these subjects. Have you guys heard anything in regards to rolling QR codes being rolled out this season? Because we obviously, we all do it. We've all heard them in circles about screenshots and stuff like that. Obviously, club are trying to stamp that out for their own interest. But have you guys heard anything about that this season? I know it's something they're looking for away fans, but there's also been rumoured about home tickets as well.
Yeah, I don't have any more info on that at the moment, Billy, to be honest, because we're not involved in the discussions at Tottenham anymore, because we're not on the trust board and we're not part of the fan advisory board. So they may well have been told about that. I know that we're moving to fully digital away tickets from next season. So that will be something that they were going to look at in order to clamp on pass-ons. I don't know where we're at with the technology. I can ask for you and let you know for next time. But I don't have any hot off the press info right now.
Perfect,
sorry.
No, that's good. Just because I know I know it's definitely been mentioned, and I know the screenshot crew of one of which I am myself are in fear of it. So,
Kat, I can't believe you haven't got the answer to everything that we're asking you.
Mate, I'm so sorry, but you know what? If I don't have the answer, I know somebody who does. So there you go. No, I will facilitate the answer for you.
You've oversold there, mate. That's it.
Excellent. Just to reiterate as well, whilst all the listeners are here, if you've got any questions or anything you want to say whilst you're on here, obviously please put your requests in now so I can add you in shortly, because obviously we've got one more question we're going to put to Kat and Martin. So please request if you've got anything to say or any questions. Get your requests in now. Moving on to obviously the last question, which is I think one that a lot of fans are actually disgruntled about is the memberships. So obviously we were getting some messages on X as well with regards to this. Are we going to mention it? So again, the club have said if you want to obviously transfer tickets, it's got to be to a member. No longer can you get a free club reference number. Obviously that's upset a lot of people. If you want to pass it to a friend or family, it's not possible without a membership. So, I mean, the thought process behind that, I mean, again, could you explain a bit about it?
Yeah.
And what your thoughts are on it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, of all of the moves that they've made, this is probably the one that sticks in my throat the most.
Yeah.
Being able to give a family member or a friend an opportunity to see a Spurs game when I couldn't make a game has been one of the great joys over the past seasons, particularly if I'm sharing it with somebody who genuinely can't afford to go or doesn't have the opportunity to go to a game. So that's been something that I've really valued. And initially, the club introduced the ticket share, facility. And they said that for security reasons, because they needed to know who was in each seat, they were going to introduce a mechanism by which all you needed to do was create a free customer reference number. It would handily give them your data, the data of your guest, which is obviously always welcome for marketing purposes, but it would also help them know who was in each seat in the stadium. And that made total sense. And it felt like a win-win for everybody. They got our data. We could give our tickets to our friends or family when we couldn't make a game. And if we didn't want to charge them anything for it, we didn't have to. Now, to force every single one of our family members or our friends to pay for a one Hotspur membership to just receive a gifted ticket, I think it's beyond distasteful. Now, we don't have any data here on how many tickets move via ticket share each game, or how many of those are repeat recipients throughout the season? Because remember, they wouldn't have to pay every single time they received a ticket. They just need a membership for the year. So it's hard to calculate the money that it will bring in for the club. But again, it's money that isn't needed in the grand scheme of things. And I just find it to be another indication of the club's overall attitude to fans. Now, we've talked a lot about screen grabs. And all I think that this will do is encourage season ticket holders to screen grab and send their passes via WhatsApp or whatever. They won't bother with the official channels, meaning that the club loses out on its initial objective of knowing who's in the stadium purely because of its own greed. And obviously, if they do enhance the digital technology, that'll be very interesting to see how that pans out. But also remember that we don't have the pricing for a One Hotspur membership for next season yet. That's not been released. So it's a minimum of £45 for the One Hotspur membership this year. Who knows what it will be next year? But as I said, I find that to be one of the most unpalatable moves. And I can't really see that much of a financial benefit for them. And I can see a lot of a downside.
Yeah. What's your thoughts, Martin? Again, thanks, Kat, for that.
I mean, I've
Welcome.
got nothing to add to that, really. I mean, that's exactly right. I just think it's a really poor decision for all of those reasons, and I just think it's also counterproductive because the clubs now cause themselves a more of a problem because there is going to be more screenshotting.
Yeah. Again, that's the question I want to ask. With regards to screenshot, is that something the club are trying to cut out? I know that Billy mentioned that. Is that something that?
Yeah. Of course, because they all want the system to work properly. But I mean, one of the odd things when you're kind of involved in stuff like this is that you kind of get phone calls from people who you never knew you knew or whatever. So we had a few people who worked in the ticketing business who got in touch with us. And they said, well, we were sort of doing stuff for the trust. And again, there's still people contacting Kat because of the work she's doing with the FSA. Yeah. Me slightly less so. And they say that there's a lot of talk about these rolling QR codes, but they're not really that good. They don't really work that well. So I think that there's still some kind of discussion in the ticketing industry about, whether this stuff could work, and everyone's looking for the perfect solution. I think fairly obviously, if you're running a business which involves selling a ticket to an individual, you want to make sure that individual can't pass that ticket on, don't you? And make some more money, because if there's money to be made, that's your product and you want to do it. So there's a logic to what they want to try and do. And there is certainly a move to digital tickets. And part of that, there's a lot of complaints from people about away tickets in particular being passed on. Now, digital ticketing will make it more difficult for people to pass their away tickets on. So there is a push from grassroots supporters, for that kind of measure as well, which the club will point to, when people are complaining about it.
And Martin, I also think that if we're looking at it from the club's point of view, there is an issue with touting. There's an issue with away fans in home areas, and digital ticketing and screen grabbing at this point in time are not helping either of those situations.
No.
So this is another situation where there could well be a justified reason for them wanting to clamp down on screenshotting, etc. But because this isn't articulated, there's a vacuum. And because none of us, I'll say none of us, quite a few of us are not warmly predisposed to the club and the club's decision makers at this point in time, because of the series of decisions that they have made, even the stuff that we've talked about tonight, underneath the banner of a headline price freeze, there's all this other stuff where it looks like they're pettily and stealthily trying to claw money back. Then we're not going to think favourably. We're going to be predisposed to see things in a negative point of view. So this is why communications is so important. So I will just leave that part there. But there could well be more to it, but we need accountability and honesty.
That's the point that we used to make. I mean, they would frequently say, like, why does everyone always think the worst? And we'd go, yeah, why? Have a look back and see if you can answer your own question.
Yeah, it seems like they can't read the room, I suppose.
They're absolutely incapable of reading a room.
Yeah, and I think that's obviously part of the frustration for fans. And I think what you said there, Kat, was spot on. You kind of start thinking negatively instantly.
Yeah, you do.
There's a lack of transparency, and there's nothing coming from the club as to why or an explanation, and everyone starts to wonder why.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that puts more pressure on the established fan groups to communicate more when they're not always in a situation where they can.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, Billy, Christina, have you got anything to add to that?
No. Yeah. That's really interesting stuff. And I think Just from my mates, I know that's one of the things that's annoyed them the most, because I know, as Kat was saying at the beginning, like, you can't go to a game, you want to try and sell it to a mate or give it to a mate. Even I've given a few to my mates this season. I know it's a widely used thing, and the fact that they have to now pay £45 to be able to do that is a joke. But I think that was a really thorough answer for sure.
Christina, have you got anything to add?
No, it's just, I find this really depressing just to hear how this club is treating. It is, isn't it?
Oh,
Wait till we
welcome to
start
my
talking about
world.
the actual football, Christina. That's even more depressing.
It's just terrible how, of all people, the most loyal fans, and I just feel with Tottenham, we've been through so much, a hell of a lot. It's been a hell of a roller coaster being a fan of Tottenham, and this is how we're getting treated. And it's even worse with just how the performance is at the moment. It's like the cherry on the top now, and yeah, it's just very sad to hear.
And I know we're going to go to fan questions in a minute, so get your requests in if you've got any questions for Matt, for Kat and Martin. But just while we're getting the requests in, do you guys, obviously you guys work with other clubs quite extensively. Are there any clubs that have the ticketing system like spot on, and you think it's better than ours, or do all clubs sort of do their own thing? Is there anyone, are people doing the same as us, where you sort of sell it for £1.90? If you're aware of any sort of the things that other clubs doing that maybe you think, oh, maybe Tottenham should copy that, or any particular schemes that are decent or anything like that in the Premier League, of course.
To start on a positive, I mean, this is more, but just to one small positive thing. I think that our away ticket allocation system is probably the best that there is. And that a lot of people will be shouting into their phones now as well. But I think that the loyalty point system, if it works properly, it is the best way of doing it. And we know at clubs where they've got things like ballots, partial ballots, whatever, random kind of giving out of tickets, it just doesn't work. I mean, imagine that, if there's a ballot and you can find out maximum 2 days before any game that you can go there, how are you going to book your travel? If it's a hotel job or something like that, how do you get the cheap train fares? It's just, it wouldn't work. And there's chaos at the club. So on that one thing, I think that our system of away ticket allocation is probably, if not the best, it's one of the best that there is in the Premier League. And that's from experience of talking to fans at other clubs as well. Now, the fact that some people game the system is another story. But I mean, I think I don't know, Kat. Is there more that you think that we get more right than elsewhere?
No, I mean,
more about this than me.
I agree with you that the away ticket allocation process, in theory, is one of the better ones throughout the Premier League, because it should, in theory, reward the people who have attended the most games over the past 5 seasons. However, in practice, the volume of pass-ons is ridiculous, and people are being blocked off. And so that isn't fair. So I deal with an awful lot of casework still that come in via the FSA. The trust also do casework. Other people are available, but some land on my desk, and it's normally because X passed a ticket on to Y, and then Y got stopped entering a stadium because they found class A's on them or whatever, and it gets back that ticket had been passed on, and the club will unilaterally, if that's the word, slash off 50% of that person's ticketing points for the pass on, and they do it every single time, and you can never get them to move on it. So this happens a lot, right? So anything, if you are caught passing on an away ticket, you have lost 50% of your ticketing points. They will not budge. There's no right of appeal, and the ombudsman more or less finds with the club on every occasion. So there's a lot of clamping down to be done there. But I do agree with Martin that in theory it's the best. Now, the thing about all the other clubs and their ticketing processes is at the FSA, they collate a lot of data every year on how this works. And they're virtually all different, because every fan demographic and fan base is different, and the way that every fan base interacts with their club is different. So Liverpool's totally different in terms of their on-sale dates, for example, for their members. They'll do them in large chunks, whereas we do ours in like matches of 3, etc., etc. The way that some clubs award credits, they don't do loyalty points going up to 5 points. It will be 1 away credit for X, Y, and Z. So there's a whole myriad of way of doing things, and they all have their pros and cons. So Manchester United, for example, would always do an in-resort ticket collection at European aways. They've recently pulled that because apparently they're too poor to afford to do that anymore. But they always did that, and that was their preference, and their trust is lobbying to get that back, actually, because funnily enough, so many people are now applying for tickets in advance and not turning up. I mean, who would ever have thought that might happen? That it's now not working as well as the in-resort collection did for their fans. But in-resort collection for our fans we largely don't like it. So there's differences going on there. But if you're, again, very bored, then we can share a load of data on all the other ticketing schemes across the division with you, Billy.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That'll cure that insomnia, mate, I tell you.
Yeah.
No, again, it's really interesting. It's great to hear from you both, Kat and Martin, to be fair, because you've got a lot of knowledge and understanding of what goes on, more than most fans behind the scenes. So to get your thoughts and your answers is really interesting. I know we have got a lot of fans that have requested, but obviously we're running out of time a little bit. So
Sorry.
don't be silly.
No.
That's what you're here for. So I think what we will look to try and do is maybe get you back on where we get the fans to ask questions. Would that be something that we
Yeah,
could
sure.
do?
Absolutely no problem at all.
Yeah, the only reason being is because we've got so many people asking to come on. I just don't want to cut everyone short. So it'd be interesting if we did that, maybe like a Q&A with you guys. Would that?
Sounds good.
Yeah. I mean, happy to do as many as you want to do now as well, but that's how you want to run it.
Yeah,
I think what we're just interested in, just trying to get information out there, really. I think the more that people know, the more they can make an informed decision about what they want to see next,
Yeah.
And that's the thing I think that's got us both for a long time is that retaining knowledge and trying to kind of disseminate that, get it out to people is quite difficult, understandably, because we just want to go and watch the football. Really, we don't really want to we don't want to make it into homework, do you?
No, absolutely. I mean, what we could look to do is maybe next week, if again we'll speak to you guys privately after this, is perhaps we could do a Q&A, but then also look to talk about the process that we'll be doing on the 6th of April.
Sure.
That we'd like to push, but also what we do is also we'll discuss that, and then any fans have got any questions for Kat and Martin, we can obviously get them on to.
Yeah, and I know this space will be uploaded to YouTube as well, so we could have a look at the comments. If you've got a question, put it in the YouTube comments. Chaz is one of our listeners and one of our key members, obviously. He oversees the YouTube, so we'll try and collect some questions from there as well. There's a couple of points and comments in the comments for this space as well that we can bring up next week. But I think I speak on behalf of all us, so I just say thank you so much. It's been so informative, and I know the first of many, I'm sure.
Thanks for the platform. I think it's just useful to, communication is the key.
Absolutely.
And I'll just say one last thing before we go. Please, everybody remember that the people who are responsible for these decisions is the club and the club board. I see a lot of stuff thrown at the trust and a lot of stuff thrown at the FAB, and they're fan volunteers at the end of the day. They're not responsible for these decisions. So they will be in those rooms lobbying on our behalf and lobbying their positions. Now, I know it's difficult because they're probably under NDA and it's hard for us to understand what's going on inside those walls. But I would just encourage everybody who's listening that the people that you want to be pushing back on are the club, and everything else we can sort out later. So peace and love, people. Peace and love.
That's a really good point, Kat, that you make there, because I think that, again, us at CFT, and we've always said a united fan base is the strongest fan base. So we should all be united as we are behind the trust and the FAB. I think we've reiterated that many times. It's not
one way you can push back on those people is by joining us in the protest. So, do you like that little link there?
Love that.
There you go. Buy a flag, buy a scarf, get in April the 6th, and let's push back against the people that make those decisions.
Definitely.
Yes, Billy.
Absolutely. And I think, again, just before we go, I'll mention that we'll look to get something in next week. Maybe we can discuss more in depth about a few things, but we're in with questions that fans have got. And then maybe we'll look at
it's International Week as well, isn't it? So no one else has got anything to talk about. So let's do that next week.
Yeah.
I can't do Thursday though.
No,
you need to find another day.
Okay. we'll try and look to do one next Wednesday. We'll do obviously questions from Martin and Kat. That's the plan, and then we'll talk more about the protest on the 6th of April, and then we will look to maybe discuss more on the Save Our Seniors, because I think that was quite an interesting one. Great.
Cheers, everybody.
No
Thank
worries,
you.
Martin, Kat. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us and taking
Thank
time.
you so much, guys.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Have a lovely evening.
You too.
And
bye.
Cheers. Have a lovely evening as well. And as always, come on, you Spurs.